Okay. And if you'd be kind enough to introduce yourself, because I don't think I do a good job. Go ahead.
Hi everybody. I think we know everybody on the call. I'm Nicole Griffin, my husband Michael.
Hello.
We've been members of the church for I think 20 years now. But our kids came with us when they were little. They've grown up in the church, and we're still active members, attending services, and I'm co-chair of the adult programs committee and the nominating committee. Mike's been on parish board.
I've been on parish board and the search committees and a whole bunch of other things. So actively involved. And I guess today we are just going to talk about some of our hiking experiences and give a little bit of everything. So we call it Climbing to New Heights because we began not knowing too much when we started. And we'll explain some of that to you. And then if there's any questions or anything, just feel free to unmute and shout out at any time. The picture you're looking at right now is from South Carolina, right after we graduated college, and we were hiking in the Congaree Swamp.
That's when we went back to South Carolina.
When we went back, but
we hiked in that location.
We hiked in the swamp a lot, which was a grand experience, especially when we'd hear either wild boars or wild dogs roaming around, and we have no idea where they are. So for today, for today's trek, we're going to give you a brief history of how we got into hiking and everything, and then we'll talk a little bit about what we carry, some of the 10 essentials that I feel everybody should have, even if you're going on just like a 3 or 4 mile hike in the woods. You never know when you're going to get lost, because I've gotten lost plenty of times. And then give you some idea of hiking in our backyard, different places that are close by that are relatively simple to moderate hikes that anyone can do. And this is somewhere in New Hampshire about 2 weeks ago. Some of the pictures I remember, some I don't. So to talk about our early years, or what I like to call is our oblivious to safety, where the only thing we ever got right in these hikes were the boots that we wore. Other than that, we were not really prepared for what we did, but we survived, as just pretty much every young person. The pictures you're seeing here are from the Smoky Mountains, which were really close to where we lived. We hiked the Chimneys quite a few times. And then we've camped up in the Smokies, and some of the pictures you can see as Nicole's coming down. This is when I decided, hey, let's follow this river down, and it turned into pretty steep.
Yeah, it had a waterfall. He decided to bushwhack. And what I laugh about is, look at my water supply, this little itty bitty canteen strapped to my shoulder. That was it. That's all we took with us, was some water. I'm wearing a cut off pair of sweatpants and a sweatshirt and work gloves.
And everything's cotton, which we'll talk about.
Yeah. And a jeans jacket.
Yeah.
Who hikes with a jeans jacket? That's so funny. Anyway.
Yeah. So then once the kids were born, we started hiking. That's where I learned that there are kid backpacks. So I've hiked with both boys on the shoulders and everything, and it started introducing them to the joys of hiking. And these are just different pictures around Camel's Hump and Acadia in Maine, which is beautiful hiking if you ever get a chance to go up there. It's got a lot of trails and stuff, and a lot of the carriage paths, which are easy to walk. So a really beautiful place. Camel's Hump is a little bit more difficult to hike. It's relatively steep, but there is right around this area here, there's a plane crash that you can go visit. That's a little bushwhack to get to it. But what we really want to talk about is expanding our joys of hiking into the White Mountains. It is just one of the places we find most beautiful. Like I said, I just retired, and I've been going up either 1 or 2 times a week to hike in the Whites, and it's just midweek hiking to me has been such a joy. because it's so less crowded than the weekends that have been. And things we like to talk about is making sure you're prepared, researching a hike. I always tell Nicole where I'm going, and I got yelled at for not texting her when I got down once.
Yes.
Because sometimes I do get lost, and I wonder when she would call to rescue me. So, so in hiking the Whites, there are a bunch of lists you can do that allow you to expand your horizon and climb around to different areas. Two of the big ones are the 4,000 footers in New Hampshire. There are more than 4,000. There are more than 48 4,000 footers, but they define the peaks by how far they are away from each other. So I believe there's almost 100 true peaks that you can get that are 4,000 feet. And then there's also a list called 52 with a view, and these are under 4,000, but offer beautiful views of just about everything. And
What? And the 52 with a view is also nicknamed Over the Hill Hikers. But I will tell you that some of those on the 52 with the view are pretty challenging. We've had some that we're huffing and puffing, but it's just the elevation is lower, but it's still a good challenge. And the one thing that's nice about those peaks is they all do have a view. You can't say the same thing about the 4,000 footers. Sometimes you're stuck in trees, and we'll show you a couple of those that have no view. And you go, that was great.
so one of the hikes that I really like is Mount Musalaki. This is on the Appalachian Trail, and there's 4 different ways to get up it. One of them is the George Brook Trail, which is a really nice one. It's by the Dartmouth Hiking Club that maintains the trails up there and everything. And what's neat about this hike is the variety of terrain that's involved. Once you get up to the top, there's a whole bunch of grass area, and it's just in the springtime, it's all wildflowers and everything. And then in the fall, it just kind of dies out, and it's like waves of grass everywhere. And it's a really beautiful mountain to hike, very popular at all seasons. We've hiked this in the winter and everything. Yes.
And you actually did see a moose.
Oh, and I
On
did see a moose
Musalaki.
on Musalaki, which was kind of neat, which was a big treat.
And
when
it
you get
was
to see a
near the
moose.
summit, right? Was
Yeah,
it?
it was on the south summit of Musalaki, and it was being monitored because it had a brain disease. So they were monitoring it for about 3 weeks, and then they took it down. So
Yeah, but that's unique to have that much open space at a summit where a moose would be hanging out
Yeah.
there. That was different.
and there's not a lot of blueberries on top of this mountain. Other mountains, there's lots of blueberries and lots of food to eat. So here are a couple pictures of some of the different places that we've hiked through. Mount Bond up here on the far side, West Bond. That ridge behind you is Bond Cliff along here, and you can stand right here. So we've hiked all of this coming around. It's really popular. It's part of the Pemigewasset Traverse, which a lot of people do in a day, 2 days, 3 days. It's about a 30+ mile hike to go around, and there's like 9 different peaks that you can go through there. Mount Washington, everybody kind of goes up there. For hikers, it's always a little bittersweet because you get to the top, and then there's so many people up there that it's like, okay, I don't want to get in line to get my picture taken. But it is, if you can get up there at all, even if you take the tram or drive up, if you can get down into the Alpine Gardens, which are a nice, relatively easy walk, you can see a lot of the mountain flowers. Late May, early June is a great time to get up there, just after the snow melt and the growing season just started. It just kind of blooms with everything. Some of the other ones that are really tall, like Mountain Zealand, you see here with Nicole. Mountain Zealand is a 4,000 footer that's the view right
No
there.
view. That was it. You're in the woods.
Surrounded by trees, and it's just a little stack there. And right next to it, she's at Mount Hale. And for some reason, there's this big clearing at the top that just has a big pile of rocks
And a bunch of trees.
and a bunch
around
of
it,
trees.
So no view.
Yeah. And then some of the other pictures, Sandwich Dome is one of the 52 with the view. And then I'm not sure what it is.
That river, who knows?
That river could be one of the places where I got lost. Evidence for my wife. So
You would have had to text it to me though.
yes. and there was no cell reception.
Bad plan.
One of the things that we really like is either being there in the morning or at night. Sunsets and sunrises are beautiful. This is a picture of Nicole doing some yoga on a sunrise on Mount Baldface. And then if you can look on the horizon, what you can see is what I call the sea of clouds. There's ground clouds forming right behind it. And a lot of time when you're up on the high peaks, when you wake up, it's just like these little peaks sticking out of an ocean of clouds. It's really hard to, get the expanse of it all. And then some of you might recognize the picture over here with the sun.
In the upper right.
Upper right, that's a sunrise at Lake Winnipesaukee.
No,
Yes, that is.
that is?
That is.
I thought that was Lonesome Lake. No?
Nope.
Okay. Never mind.
And then the bottom one here is up in Vermont at a place called Merck Sustainable Forest and Farmland. We were actually introduced that from one of my students who became one of the education coordinators up there. And I brought a ton of students up there. And then just this last winter, me and Nicole did a winter camping expedition or to a little hut up in the area. It was quite beautiful, quite cold, quite rainy, quite hot.
It was variable.
Other places, if you go north of the Whites, there's a lot of different trail systems that go through the different ponds that are up there. And in southern Maine too, there's a lot of relatively flat hiking that you can do that goes through the pond areas. This is Cherry Pond in the Northern Whites. It is a state park, I believe. And it's just a nice flat terrain. Lots of families go on it. People bike through it. And it's just really beautiful, and you get great views of the different mountain ranges in the distance.
Yeah, I think it's Pondicherry. It's part of it is Pondicherry National Wildlife Refuge. So a lot of birds are in the area. So you'll see a lot of birds there.
Yeah. And like I said, this is from yesterday. I was up on Franconia Ridge with the wolves, and we saw maybe about 8 to 9 people. It was just a beautiful day. And one thing about hiking in these different areas is the people you get to meet. So I've met people from all over the world who come to hike in the White Mountains. And just on this day, like I said to some earlier people, we met a whole bunch of people from Quebec, originally from France. There was a German gentleman hiking up there for the first time, and just a lot of different groups come down from Canada to hike in this area, especially from Montreal. It's a really quick drive, and it's always just nice to chit chat with them all and just enjoy the experience. I've been on this ridge in this glorious weather, in snowstorms and rainstorms, and every time you hike, I feel it's a new hike.
Yeah.
So it's this ridge I've climbed 4 times this year so far.
And you're on Lafayette.
Yes, I'm on Lafayette,
You're
looking
facing south.
back, and the mountain you see in the center, this is Mount Lincoln, and then way back here, I believe, is the Flume. So there's a trail that comes up all the way, cuts through here, and then goes back around and comes back down over this side. And then Katahdin, of course, up in Baxter, is a beautiful place to hike.
Baxter State Park in Maine.
Go ahead.
I'm just saying, not
Take it
everybody,
over.
not
Take it over,
everybody
take it
knows,
over.
but we've gone to, the first time we went to Baxter was in 2020 during the pandemic. And that was your second time, my first time. And it was really kind of interesting because everything had been shut down. So when we first got there, everything was pristine and it was great. But one of the main draws for people to go there, obviously, is to hike up Mount Katahdin, which is just this huge, massive mountain that just pokes up out of the main landscape as you're driving up there. And the Knife's Edge over on the left-hand side is what we had planned to do that first time. And it's you can't really tell from just looking at the picture, but it is very thin. Like the path at times was maybe like 3 feet wide, and it's a sheer drop off on either side. So it's not for the faint of heart, but it was a lot of fun. There was we like to scramble a bit and do some climbing, not lot like technical mountain climbing, but it was a lot of fun to do that and walk the whole ridge over to the summit of Katahdin.
And another interesting aspect about Katahdin, it's either the beginning or ending of the Appalachian Trail, depending on which way you're going. So you meet a lot of people who've just finished up or just starting out. A lot of people up there celebrating later in the day, and it's always a variable temperature. And the thing that we always have to be wary about is the conditions, because they change very quickly. As you can see in the bottom picture, you're actually looking at Katahdin from one of the ponds that is right outside the park that we were kayaking through. South Brother is, there's also a list called the New England 67. It's going on the highest 67 peaks in New England. And this picture was taken on July 4th, which was when I finished up that list. We had to go up to this mountain, and I don't know if you can, I took my bug net off, but there was tons of flies on the mountain.
It was crazy.
And we tried to eat lunch, but we couldn't because of the amount of bugs that were there sometimes.
Oh no, we ate, but we had, imagine having a bug net over your head and then just picking your sandwich up in the bug net and eat and bring it back down. That was fun. This is Katahdin.
So this is the backside of Katahdin, and this is
from Chimney Pond Campground. So this is Chimney Pond, and Knife's Edge is up over to the left here. So this is, the sign would be up in the middle, and it was, so this pond would have been behind us from the picture on the previous slide. And we hiked this whole ridge that year all the way around and down. That was a long 11-hour hike that day. That was a good one. It was,
No,
but
but-
it was a workout.
This is
For sure.
Cathedral.
Yeah, but Hamlin Ridge continues.
Hamlin
down.
Ridge is way back there.
Okay, anyway,
So it's a beautiful spot, and this is a camping area that you can hike into. They have a whole bunch of lean-tos. It's about a 6-mile hike, 6 or
No.
7
3-mile hike.
to get here.
Up from
Oh,
the
yeah,
campground,
3 to 4 mile hike from the another campground to get into here.
Roaring Brook.
And you can only hike into this place with lean-tos, and there's a station there, and there's a whole bunch of hikes you can do just around the area. And the pond here, this is our water source, so you have to bring your filters and different things like that. And, it's just really, really nice.
But no swimming in that pond, even though it looks great. You can't swim in it.
This one.
This is, so when the day after we camped there, we climbed up the Cathedral Trail to get up to the ridge of Katahdin. And this is just a few shots along the way. Starting off on the right, this is me beginning the climb. And the thing that you need to do while you're hiking is look for the markers. You can see in these pictures, they might be a little bit small, but there's little blue hashes that we had to follow rock to rock and climb. This was literally climbing the whole way up. The picture in the middle is Mike on top of one of the cathedrals. So these big outcroppings of the rocks is what they were called, cathedrals. And then continuing on the left to make it up to the ridge. And there's a little bit, you can see there's a person way up on the upper left-hand side, but it was basically climbing the rocks the whole time.
Yeah.
And I thought I was going to be terrified because I'd heard how hard it was, but it was actually a lot of fun. Everything was reachable for me, which sometimes I'm only 5 feet tall. So sometimes where they think something is reachable for anybody, it's really not.
And one of the funny things about this hike is we started out early, and a group of about 4 guys passed us right before we got up to the climb. And then about 10 minutes later, we were passing them up because they didn't explain to one of their friends how steep it was. And the friend was petrified of heights. And this was a guy in his early 20s and just, really in great shape. And he couldn't do it. He was just doing it really slow. And it's like, whoa, what's going on here?
Well, he did do it.
But he finally made it to the top.
And
It just took him a long, long time.
He was cursing them.
So we'll transition now and go over to Europe. One of the trips that we really enjoyed was going from Chamonix to Zermatt, and this is called the Haute Route. And you want to talk?
Sure. So this is the reason we're standing underneath this banner on the right is we did this for our 30th anniversary. We wanted to take a big trip. And Mike had learned of this through one of his colleagues at work
Mhm.
who had recently done it. So it says Joyeux anniversaire, which is really happy birthday, but you know, it's close enough. And this was on our first day of hiking, so we felt we had to take the picture. But just some statistics on the oat route. It's a trek that takes, if you do the classic route, following the guidebook that we had, it's 14 days, 180 kilometers or 112 miles in those 14 days. So it was a good workout. And the highest point was, I'm going to do it in feet, 9,799 feet. And the height gain over all of those days is 49,867 feet. So it was quite a workout because every day you're going up to a pass and coming back down. We didn't go over any peaks because then we would be doing mountaineering, but it's staying on the trails and getting close to the peaks and seeing so many glaciers and wonderful things along the way. But you would go up and down at least 1 or 2, sometimes 3 passes in a day. So it was definitely feeling it on the quads and the glutes at the end of the
And we
end of the
started
trail.
this hike in the early season of the trail opening, and there was still a whole lot of snow on the trail that we'll show some pictures of later. But the trails are thin, they're steep, and we had to put our crampons on quite often, our micro spikes, and it was a great experience. And once again, the people you meet, we met people from Australia, from the Netherlands, yes,
Oh, well, everywhere. I mean,
Belgium,
yeah.
just all around the different places. And some were just up for day hikes at different areas, and some were doing the trail too for us.
And then when you're doing it, we have large packs on because we're just bringing all of our clothes. We didn't have to bring, we brought food to eat on the trail, but we would stay overnight in either a hostel or a mountain hut or sometimes an inn. And at least we didn't have to bring like camping gear, but there was a couple from Montana that was camping and they had gigantic packs. So I was very happy that I didn't have to carry a tent.
Yes. And these are just some more of the areas that we would be hiking through. A lot of times we got so excited the first time we saw the cows with the bells on, and we took pictures and all that kind of stuff. And then we realized they're pretty much everywhere. And it was just really neat to be just hiking along, and then all of a sudden you have a whole bunch of cows and everything. And the terrain was very varied too, from the classic
Sound of music.
Sound of
right
Music
there. Look at
to
that.
just going down. And to give you kind of a scope, we're at a pass right here, just underneath it, for the biggest picture here. And then we had to climb down all the way around through the lake, and we're going through the pass way back here to go down and to another.
That was,
Pass.
we went through that and then we did those crazy ladders. I
Yeah,
like that
and
one.
then we had to climb some ladders. And at one point, the pictures here, we were climbing and the rope disappeared. So this is a picture of one of the cabans that we stayed at. What's really nice is when you're at these upper cabans, they have food for you to eat. It's usually part of the meal you stay there. Really good thing is all of them had beer, one kind, beer.
It was large or small.
Large or small. And
Usually large.
you can see, I'm going to try and zoom into an area down here. You can see this is some of the trail, the snow that we were climbing across to get to the other parts of the trail. Is that you? Not sure who
No,
that
I
is.
think that's one of our
Might be one of our climbing buddies, but it was quite interesting because some of the passes we went through, there was other ways to go around, and we got through them. People would say, "You went through there?" And we're like, "Yeah." And they go, "Oh, that wasn't open," or "That had just opened a second ago." But one thing was really neat is the flowers that were everywhere. I mean, I took so many pictures of mountain flowers and everything. And here you can see one of the cows that were just walking by, and the bells underneath would be dinging there. And that would allow the rancher to know where his cows were at. So you can see, and there's our beer. But the views were extraordinary. So this is where we were staying at. This is the Europa hut. And this is Mount the
Vice.
Weisshorn, which is just a fantastic to seeing it through the different color lights and everything. And just once again, all the people are just talking with each other and getting to know, and you just randomly talk to everybody, which is really nice.
That was our last night before we got to Zermatt. So people are in a good mood there. This is another mountain hut that we stayed at. It's very fancy. If you look way over on the left, there's this new part that's been built with all these glass windows. We're right in front of the glacier at Maury, Moiry.
Mhm.
And it was just so neat to be sleeping right next to this huge glacier. This is just part of it that you can see right on this observation deck. And this is actually reachable. People could do a day hike from the road just to hike up here to get to this one. And if you look, this little blue thingy in the back here was a little swimming pool that the people who were working at the hut were filling up for their kids to go swimming. So, I mean, what could be better than being, a little kid living next to this thing and swimming and having a great time.
And also, you can hike down to the glacier too. So I wasn't tired yet. So I just went down and hiked down to the glacier here to be like even close to the bottom, and you can actually walk across it. But one of the unnerving things is because it was starting to melt again, you just hear the ice cracking underneath it. And it's kind of amazing to just hear the sound of this giant thing. And it is, I could walk right over to the glacier. It's so close to us. And once again, here is the
That's the
Weisshorn.
Weisshorn again.
This wasn't the first thing in the morning. The sun's just coming across it, and it just was like a pinkish glow for the longest time. You want to talk about the rope?
Well, first I want to
Oh.
talk about, and
You can zoom in.
I'm going to zoom in here. This is the world's largest pedestrian suspension bridge that you take from the path at the Europa Hut to get over to Zermatt. I forget.
It's almost a half mile
Like-
long.
And it's so long and it dips down so low that you are really hiking down and then hiking back up. And it's also see-through on the bottom. So it can be a little bit nerve-wracking for some folks, but that was just amazing. It had been closed because there was a rock slide that impacted it, but they had it ready to go before we got out there. And then here's a shot of the condition of some of the trails. That's me with the little rope here that you cling to, and you can see that the part of the trail isn't quite level there. So you really had to sometimes grab onto the rope, and it went on for quite some time. So parts of it, yeah, you definitely have to be comfortable with heights and trusting that that rope is gonna hold you. But this view was just amazing from the hut. Such a beautiful way to wake up in the morning for the last day of the trek.
Yeah, but this is right before we got into Zermatt. And then we made it.
Ta-da.
So we treated ourselves at the end to a really nice hotel and everything. And this is the view from basically our bed and our balcony. So every time we woke up in the morning, we would just look right out to the Matterhorn. It was just an incredible view. And a lot of people will just go to Zermatt because there's so many hiking trails just up in this area for skiing and hiking that you can go up to. They have a train that goes up to the top, and then just short trails at the top, so you can see the different valleys and the different glaciers that are all in the area. And you can actually go inside one of the glaciers. They have one of the major ski areas that they have. The gondola goes inside the glacier, or no, goes inside the mountain, and then you go inside through tunnels in the mountain, and you could walk inside the glacier. They carved out the under part of it.
Yeah.
So
Glacier Palace.
yes.
And this is that swanky gondola. I mean, I've never been in a gondola. There were rhinestones on the seats.
And all the
Very-
seats were heated. It's quite beautiful. And this is it coming down, and this is I think the second one that we had to get onto.
Gondola to a gondola.
And then to different places. So all along the mountains too, there would be some restaurants in Zermatt that are just halfway down the mountain that we'd hike to. And then in the town itself, there was festivals going on.
And we had to take a picture of the guy with the Ricola
The
horn.
Ricola horn. And the Ricola garden is actually in Zermatt. So it was, I think
They
we
have an
found it.
herb garden.
It's this tiny little herb garden is supposedly where it started. So now we'll transition into our last trip. This is in Cusco, Peru. This is a picture from Rainbow Mountain, which is an elevation of about 16,000 feet that we climbed up to. And it was just Peru is such a magical experience just because of the varied terrain and just the history back to the Inca times. So what we did was a trek called the Salcante Trek, which was a 5-day hike to Machu Picchu, not on the Inca Trail.
Parts of it.
Parts of it are the Inca Trail, but if you take a Inca Trail trek to Machu Picchu, it's a straight and very crowded way to go. A lot of people do it. It's very famous, but this one we decided on because it wasn't that crowded.
And we got great recommendations and information from Eleanor Hobbs,
Yes.
who had done it back in, I think, 2011. And she showed me her pictures and talked all about it. So we were sold when we heard
Yep.
about her experience.
And then in Machu Picchu itself, these are actually in Cusco, not at Machu Picchu yet. There's a whole bunch of ruins just about everywhere. This is one of the major temples, and just seeing how the construction of these things. I mean, these are just, there's no cement or
There's no
anything inside of
seams.
all these, no seams. You want to talk?
And this is, so to acclimate, because when you get to Cusco, you're already at 11,000 feet. Because we were going to be hiking 3 days after we arrived, we wanted to get out and walking about. So we actually hired a cab for 2 hours because there wasn't a direct route to get to this one site called Tapone. 4 hours. 4 hours with the exchange rate, $25. Where can you beat that? Nowhere. The driver took us to the site, and he sat and he waited while we hiked around for 2 hours, and then he drove us back, and it was $25. And we were like, oh my gosh, this is great. But Tapone is the site, and they have all kinds of waterworks, old terraces from the village. You can see a little bit of the village here. There were some temple areas, and Mike is hiking along here along one of the, you can see it's overgrown, but there used to be water flowing through this conduit right here. And then you can see the modern village down below. But the terracing, we would just be driving down the road and you would just see terraces everywhere from, current day, late, ancient Inca times. They're just still visible in the area. But this is day 1 of our trek, and that's Humante Mountain. And that was where we were headed for our first actual hiking day.
So this is Humante Lake, which once we hiked in, we got to hike to the lake here. It's all glacier filled. It's a green color to it. It's really beautiful. It really shines a lot. And back here is Humante Glacier, Humante Mountain. And then where I'm standing here with one of our friends is actually right up here. So you just climb up, and this whole ridge along here is just dividing 2 valleys. So you have the lake here, and you can go down pretty much about 2,000 feet on the other side to a whole nother water valley that if you wanted to go to. So this was our first day, and this was the testing day for our hiking group to see if we could all manage the elevation and everything. So, and we passed.
And
Yay.
if you couldn't, the good thing about this trek is that you have horses that are carrying your equipment. So if you couldn't hike it, you could pay to ride a horse if you wanted to, but none of us wanted to ride a horse. So all of us in our group of 10, I think, we all passed with flying colors, thankfully.
And this was our sleeping accommodations. It's a glassed-in dome that is fantastic because all night you can see the stars, you can see the moon, and when the moon came out, all the glaciers were lit up, and it was just really beautiful. Just wake up and seeing all that. And then we hiked through, the next day we hiked through this valley and up around the pass over here, which you can see, we saw alpaca and llamas on the trail quite often, just hiking through.
And that's Salcante Mountain.
Yes.
That's where, that's the namesake of the trek.
And just the next few pictures are just pictures of the trek going through. The glaciers everywhere and the mountains region was just spectacular. Every time you turned around and looked, it would change and the weather would change. Lots of different terrain. As we say, this is where we came. We came from
Over there.
over here somewhere.
Yep.
Up on the top and just caving through, and it was just a nice walking path. And the year before, actually, an avalanche caused a landslide, and all this area here was washed out just a year ago, and they redid the path, and a lot of it was very steep because of this, and the trail was very thin at different times. But once again, waterfall, we're in the cloud forest at this time, and just seeing the different terrain, meeting the people on the trail, different farms on the trail that we would have, avocados growing everywhere, passion fruit,
Avocados, passion fruit, those tomatoes.
those tomatoes. Yeah. There we go. And here we are. It's our first view of Machu Picchu. It's right around here somewhere. It was very cloudy, but we were all excited. It's one of the longer days that we can go in to see. And
It's, oop, stop that.
so,
It's right here.
yeah.
Right there.
And Machu Picchu is actually on this entire trek, the lowest point where we're hiking.
Oops,
What did you do?
oops, sorry. Share. I hit escape. Get it back in there. There we go. Sorry.
All right. So Machu Picchu is one of the lowest areas, which is, it's only as high as Mount Washington. It's about 6,000 feet. And then there's Humante Mountain, which is right behind it that we climbed. But we had to go down into this valley and climb all the way through, or hike all the way through with our stuff. And then we finally made it. Still can't believe we were there. It's almost like picture postcard. But if you look at this mountain behind, that's also where we got to climb. And they only let about 200 people climb that a day now. But there are stairwells that are climbing all the way up to this. And we'll show you a picture in a second of the mountain back there. But the day we got there, it was cloudy and stuff, and clouds would snake over the ruins, and it was just really a magical time. And the sun actually did appear. Here are some of the pictures up the mountain that we were just showing you. And this is Machu Picchu from the other side. And this is the bus you would take down if you didn't want to hike. And that's the path for the bus that's going there. And the picture back here, once again, this is Machu Picchu, and just, this is actually Mount Machu Picchu that you can come through. And the Sun Gate, which if you walk up on the real trail, is right through here that people would walk through. And that's if you wanted to get there early in the morning before it opened up. And then the next day we climbed over to Rainbow Mountain, which we heard about from some friends. And it was just the different colors in the mountain behind us are formed from different minerals on the rock. And the day we went, it had snowed the night before. So the people who were on the early trips, many of them got turned around because the snow was too deep for the cars to go through. And we were hiking up, it actually did snow. And then these birds that you see are called caracaras, and they were actually flying around. And we were there, we were the last people up there during the day. So it was really kind of magical because we were the only people on the mountain and just seeing everything around there. And this llama that I'm sitting on, the snow llama, was built by one of the people who just monitors the top. And the flag, it is not a rainbow flag, it is a Cusco flag because it has an extra color in this. This light blue here is for the sky. And it's just representation of all the different aspects of Cusco. And then here's us this is our hiking group. at one of the mountain peaks. I think that's
That was at
Salcante.
that was at the pass,
Uh,
wearing our marketing material.
yes, we got our t-shirts right there, so we had to put them all on. But that's Freddie, our guide. And then you wanna,
And then the ladies that were with on the left-hand side, when after we got back up from Rainbow Mountain the next day, we went zip lining and had to wait for a gap in between another tour that we were taking. So our driver took us to this little market where they taught us all about the textiles and how they do the weaving and the dyeing the wool and everything. And those two ladies there were hilarious. They had a captive audience, and
we were the only two people that were there.
and they had booths from like 25 different people that would sell things. And so of course we had to go, shop from every woman that was there.
Yes.
And this lovely sweater is one of the products that we walked away with. I got some gloves, I got a hat, I got a headband. They made out pretty well that day.
Yes.
But the prices of everything there, they always tell you to, go to the market and haggle. And we couldn't do it because the sweater that I'm wearing, which has a hood and all kinds of nice stuff, it was 90 soles, which is really like $20. So I'm like, nope, you're getting full price. I mean, you can't beat it.
So that was the end of our hiking part. I'm going to go through this next part relatively quickly just because of time constraints. I want everybody respect everybody's time and give you a chance to ask some questions. So one of the things that we've learned throughout the years, I've done a whole bunch of training in wilderness first responder and making sure that you're carrying the 10 essentials all the time. So quickly, I'm going to go through this and then we can ask questions at the end. The biggest thing is navigation. I always tell people, make sure you bring a physical map and know your route. Let somebody know where you're going. So the picture you're seeing here is a place where Nicole and I were hiking in Switzerland, and it's called the Grand Desert. Desert.
Nicole will correct you.
Yes, I cannot speak. So we were hiking through there, and because they had so much snow, all the trail markers were gone. And we're hiking through, and we thought we were following somebody else's path, and then all of a sudden everything disappeared. We had no cell reception. Nothing kind of worked, but luckily Nicole made me and insisted on buying some maps, and we had a compass because there was nobody here. It was getting late in the day, and we had to find a pass to go through. So luckily we pulled out all the maps at one point, figured out where we were supposed to go, and just made it to our cabana after dinner was served. And they had, our group that got there before us had told them we're on our way, and we got there and we
The
survived.
waitress saw us, and then they all started yelling, "Yay!"
Yeah, the waitress saw us as we came across a pass where we still had about 3 miles to go.
That was fun.
So, and then having a compass, like I just said, there's a Map.me is one of the programs that I found lately that actually works offline. So it's one of the ones I really like to tell people about. Clothing is very important. Learning to dress in layers. Avoid cotton at all costs, especially in your socks. If you have socks that are cotton, I don't care if it's really warm out, your feet are going to get cold because it's just sucking the warmth out of your body. Having a warm hat, bringing extra clothes all the time is very, very important. Food and water are essential. Take extra food that you think you're going to need in case you get lost, and extra water or a filtration device. We have this little Sawyer filter that I just put in my backpack just in case I get lost. So on an average 6 to 12 mile hike, I'll have sandwich, fruit, and chocolate, 2 liters of water. I'll bring some warm tea in a jar, and just an energy drink, bags of jerky, and some protein bars, just in case I get lost. I don't eat it all, but it's just in case, and I've eaten it all. I always carry some waterproof matches with me in case I get lost and stay overnight, but also having a flashlight and a headlamp, especially this time of year where you forget that sunset's about 4:30. And you could end up needing your headlamps to get out on a path. Even if it's just the last mile, you're going to be glad that you have that illumination. First aid, I bring a basic first aid kit. I don't expect everybody to bring all of this. The picture you're seeing in the middle is me. This is at one of my training classes. I sent this to my parents and they panicked right away thinking that I was injured and sick and got carried out. But having just even a basic first aid for cuts and scrapes is always important. Two of the things that I make sure that I always have too is a little small thing of duct tape, because it pretty much works for a lot of different things. You can close up a wound and everything. And just having some ibuprofen, just in case you start getting pains that you can't deal with. Rain gear is essential. Always carry it, especially in the White Mountains, because you never know when it's going to change the rain. You can see us wearing our full rain gear here, gaiters, and I'm wearing a kilt, actually, a rain kilt, just because it's a hot day. But yeah, just making sure you have your rain protection is always good. Other things that we consider is our base layer, gloves, bug nets, neck gaiters, your pack size. So this is our pack, just to kind of give you an idea. This is us leaving for Switzerland and all our gear, and this is us in Switzerland. So you can see all of the stuff that I'm wearing here is also in this pack. So you can pack a lot and pack tightly when we're going through. So local areas that are really good, Great Meadows right by us. The Blue Hills is a very extensive network of trails that is much beyond just Big Blue, the big mountain with the weather station on the top. And there's a lot of different variety of terrain that you can go through. There's a lot of hiking groups that hike midweek and the end of the week, and the AMC can invite you on there, and you get on the lists. And I just did some trail work with a whole group of people, and I was the youngest person on the trip. And you just take our times and just the flat hikes, and really, really nice. Middlesex Fells, DCR parks, Rock Meadow and Beaver Brook right by us here in Belmont is a great place to hike through. And then some other ones is Mount Auburn Cemetery is very varieties for the fauna. It's just a beautiful place to go and hike. Flora. Some fun.
And the fauna.
You want to do this?
And then these are just some sites for more information about the places we talked about. I think, here's the over the hill hikers. That's the 52 with a view. But there's the 4,000 footers, the DCR parks, Trustees Reservation, and Peak Bagger if you want to see all the peaks around the world.
Yeah, and they give you lists and descriptions of everything about the trails too, and the terrain usually, and a lot of them are right on time, on spot.
Yeah.
So
That's it.
thank you all. I know that last part was relatively quick, but we wanted to make sure we had some time to answer any questions. And this is sunset in Baxter State Park.
So
Stop share. So, are there any questions?
How much do the backpacks weigh?
Mine was 35 pounds.
So on our whoa, why are we echoing? On our treks that are like overnight hikes where we have to bring our food, extra water, and all that, my pack usually is between 30 and 35 pounds. On a day hike, it's usually about 10 pounds, and most of that is water, the biggest weight. So if you have a little filter, especially in the White Mountains, there's water everywhere, so you can always refill with water. But I also, my pack, I tend to bring enough in case I get lost for an overnight. So I have a bivvy in there. I have a lot of things that normal people don't carry. So usually I'd estimate a day pack size to be under 10 pounds for most people.
Yeah.
Yes, Eloise.
I think I'm causing an echo, so I keep muting, but I noticed you didn't have any sticks.
I had them.
Oh, because
I use all the time.
So I carry my poles with me. I don't use them a lot. And the thing that I'm mostly carrying them for is to help other people. Because they can be used as a splint if somebody hurts their leg, or even just giving it to another person to travel with. So when I did the 100-miler with one of my friends, he broke both his poles, and he ended up having severe blisters and everything because he wasn't listening to me. But that's a whole nother story. So I ended up giving him my poles for for the thing, because I'm used to not having to use them yet. I have used them on some of the trails where, like when I just did the Hemi Traverse, at the end of the day, I had been hiking like 15 miles already and I had another 5 to go. I was just exhausted, and they do help.
I'll talk as somebody who uses them all the time. I use them all the time, unless I'm on very flat. I just think they're very helpful for keeping your balance, especially sometimes with water crossings.
Yeah.
And also saving your knees coming down. I use them a lot. And I'm slower going down the hill than I am going up. And I found a lot of people say the same thing.
Could you, hi guys, great talk. I have to run in a couple of minutes, but could you talk about, on your boots, do you change your boots based on, where you're at, or do you know, ankle or higher ankle, or, you know, depending upon if it's scramble type stuff, or, you know, New England's got all this loose materials, or, you know, or even like a sneaker sometimes, I don't know, but curious
So-
about your footwear.
Yeah, most of the times, Nicole will tell you, I have like 5 different sets of boots, because I'm breaking them in. And I found one that I like. I like ones that go over my ankle. I use a 3/4 inch boot, a 3/4 height boot, sorry. And then for the terrain and stuff, it's just keeping an eye on the bottom of your boot. I just use the one boot for summer, and then I have winter boots too that are higher and stronger. But trail runners I've hiked in too, for the flatter routes where it's not as difficult to go through.
Yeah, and I hiked one season, the entire season in trail runners, and it was good. I liked it a lot. I did find that my foot slid around a lot, so I found that having the mid height in the same model of boot, and then sometimes I have waterproof boots right now, and I find that they get too hot. So some of the boots, like Topo, creates a boot that I really like that has a nice big toe box, and they're very thin, and they have a boot and a trail hiker that dry out really quickly. So even if your foot gets wet, if you're wearing the wool socks, by the time you hike a little bit longer, your foot dries out. And just look for anything with the Vibram grip, VIBRAM. Those work really well. I found that I rarely slip with that. There's a number of makers that use that technology on the bottom.
And for the spring, summer, and fall hikes, you want a boot that's water resistant, not waterproof. And just making sure when you get done with your hike, you just take out the insoles and everything and keep them nice and dry. That's the biggest thing, keeping your boots dry. And then, like, I double sock. So I have a sock liner and I have a sock on top of that. And the reason I do that is it prevents any kind of blisters usually. But that, once again, it's personal preference. You get to try and do it different ways. But like I said, it takes me about a year to break in a pair of boots, and then I'll wear it a lot for the next year, and then they only last me a season because I do hike a lot.
Can you spell the brand you mentioned, Nicole? Topo?
Topo, TOPO, like a
Okay.
like a topo map, a topographic map. They are cut. They have like the low rise, so they're kind of more of a neutral boot. They don't have a really high heel, and it seems more natural sometimes. You know,
Yeah.
they're very comfortable.
And then the trail runners that I hike in are Hokas.
Yeah, Hoka makes good. I have a pair of Hoka boots as well, and they
How
have
do you
the
spell that?
HOKA. They're very popular for sneakers. They have a lot of cushioning on them because my podiatrist actually wears them all the time. It's really to minimize foot pain on the bottoms of your feet. A lot of people with plantar fasciitis wear them.
Yes.
Are you a REI? Where do you shop? Are you
REI.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I probably have to wear men's boots, but it's interesting to learn about summer boots versus waterproof boots, which mine are, but I'm pretty sweaty after. Well, since my hand is raised, can I keep going? This is such a basic, silly, ignorant question, but I need some advice about the initial base layer, especially for cross-country skiing, where I hate walking out of the house and being freezing for 10 minutes. So I wear enough that I'm not freezing, but then I get really sweaty very quickly. And that's true for hiking too.
Yeah.
So I need a very good wicking layer, but that will also keep me a little bit warm. And I don't know where to start. And do I wear wool or one of these newer modern materials?
I wear synthetic. I'm very sensitive to wool, except for baby alpaca wool.
No, alpaca is fabulous. Yeah.
I wear just like synthetic or silk even,
What's the other ones I have?
the wool, smart wool.
No,
Have you tried Daymart?
yes.
Daymart Materials, which does exactly, does protect you against, it's a French company, I believe. Have you tried those?
He says he has.
I
have
oh,
tried
merino wool.
Merino wool.
Yeah, I've tried those, but I also use merino wool as a base layer.
No,
And-
Daymart, Damart. It's a company that does specific things for woodcutters that go up in the mountains and stuff like that.
I
Yeah.
have not. Have you?
And look in, I think they may still have a store in New Hampshire. And they're special for insulation and not sweating. I mean,
Yeah. So Catherine, what I do is I do the advice that my son gave me actually. Plan for 15 degrees warmer than it is. You do go through that chilly period, but once you start, you don't have to take off those layers. And like when I hike, it's easier for guys, but I change my shirt at the top of the mountain. So I bring an extra shirt with me just to flip out, even on super cold days, just putting on that drier shirt and all my shirts will keep me warm even when they're wet, but it just gives me a refreshed feeling. But I, like on the last hike I did just yesterday, when we got out of the car, I had 3 layers on plus a puffer vest. I immediately took off the puffer and I was just in a t-shirt and 2 thin layer. One was a base layer, like a long sleeve t-shirt, and the other one was just a polyester pullover. And that was nice because I was able to, after like 15 minutes, I took off the 1 layer. And you want to take it off when you first start to feel warm, so you don't build up that layer of sweat.
Okay, right.
One of the big mistakes a lot of people do, they wait until they're totally sweaty and then take off the layer, and then you're freezing to death because
Right.
all that evaporation is taking all your heat away.
That's what happens to me right now, cross-country skiing. By the time I'm coming home, and I often go out an hour before sunset in Rock Meadow. And so by the time I'm coming home, I'm hot and cold at the same time because I'm so wet. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Do you think if I just go to REI and start talking to them, they'll have suggestions?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
how much water does your filter, that little filter?
For the life of the filter, I believe it's I think it's 500 gallons of water or more.
For the little filter you were showing?
Yeah,
Wow.
for the life. And like if we're going to that, I have a larger Katahdin filter that I change out, and that's good for 1,000 gallons of water. So it lasts me the season.
Do you plan your adventures far in advance? Number one, I mean, like, do you have like this schedule? We're going to do this many trips this week. And secondly, well, I have 3 questions. And second, what time do you leave the house to go hiking up in Maine? And 3, what time do you recommend that people do a walk or hike?
Well, planning in advance, when we do the larger treks, we'll usually plan those out at least 6 months in advance, just to make sure that that's so that we can get accommodations.
That's like the big ones where we're out for a week or more.
Yeah, like Peru and the Oak route, that was months in advance.
And like Baxter State Park, we went up there for 4 days, and because it's got so popular, you have to book that 4 months in advance because that's the earliest you can book it. And usually 2 days after that, it's all full.
Yeah. It's also
So Baxter is one of the hard ones to get camping spots, but for like day hikes that I do, it's pretty much, what does the weather look like tomorrow? I haven't done this in a while, I'm gonna go. So like yesterday's hike, I talked to Jonathan and Leslie about going on a hike, so I kind of knew we were gonna go on. And they just called me the night before and said, hey, you want to go do this? And I'm like, sure. And just threw everything in my bag and go. So the time you have to leave for a hike, if you're doing midweek hikes, you don't have to leave as early because you don't have to worry about parking. But in general, I'm an early riser, so I'm usually out of the house by 6 o'clock in the morning to be on the trail before 9. But that's my personal preference because I like to be out there when there's like not a lot of people. But going in the midweek now, I could leave probably about 7 and just to be up there by 9:30, 10 o'clock. And like this time of year, you want to make sure you have enough daylight at the end of the day. So how long my hike is going on there. And I go by a silly rule. I have to hike longer than I drive. So the distance of my hike sometimes depends on how far I'm driving. But when I was doing the peak bagging, I know one time I drove up to Wildcat and I hiked Wildcat Mountain in like 3 hours and I just jumped back in the car and got home by 1 o'clock.
And he's really a fast hiker.
Yeah, I'll
So
hike. When I'm by myself, I hike way too fast. I'll do 2.5 to 3 miles an hour.
He misses me.
And I just I've gone to bringing a book with me to sit up on the top of a mountain and just take my time and enjoy it more. So, but it's really hard. I mean, the best thing you do is like planning your hike, do a little research for it, and just kind of getting an idea. Weekend hiking, the parking spots fill up incredibly fast, especially because of the pandemic. It seems like everybody's hiking. Winter hiking is a little less because not a lot of people do it. But if you go on a winter hike, if you have snowshoes, winter hiking is actually easier than summer hiking because you don't have to worry about the rocks because they're all covered with snow. So a lot of times we'll just hike in our micro spikes if the trail's been blazed out, packed down. And it's really a joy. You just, all the different layers like Catherine was talking about. In the winter, I even wear more layers because a lot of times by the time I'm climbing up, I'm just in a t-shirt at the top. So I hope that answers it.
Could you put in this has been fascinating. Could you put in the chat the organization that you used to go to Peru?
Oh,
Yeah.
And I also want to recommend for hiking in the White Mountains, and I'm going to put it in the chat, is, well, it's not going in.
I got 1 extra K in there.
They can figure that out.
K.
There we go. A friend of mine wrote a book called 48 Peaks, Hiking and Healing in the White Mountains. And it's really a memoir by Cheryl Circus. She actually came to First Church when I was there at some point. I can't remember when. And talked about the book. I hiked 16 of the peaks with her, and I think I'm Ginny in the book. She changes the
Oh,
name.
wow.
So it's just kind of fun. I really enjoyed your slides and the stories. It's wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
And the newest edition of this just came out. It is the White Mountain Guides. So it's the updated with all the new trails and and if you buy this in the pack condition, it comes with all the maps too. So it's just a White Mountain Guide. It's put out by the Appalachian Mountain Club. But it's a really comprehensive book and it gives you all the side trails and stuff. So one of my latest adventures has been climbing peaks up the trails that I haven't climbed the trails yet. So I'm trying to get up every way up to the different mountains. And I just climbed Mount Chikura 2 weeks ago on this back trail. It took me 8 miles just to go up Chikura. But it was just a trail that I will never hike again because it was not very fun. But you have a lot of those and it's just a different experience. Any other questions?
Well, thank you very much. It was really wonderful.
Oh, thank you for having us.
Yeah, wow, I'm impressed with your stamina.
What kind of camera do you use?
I usually just use my phone a lot of time, but I just bought an Olympus 3/4. Oh, here.
He took pictures of the eclipse with it the other day.
So this is actually a travel camera that I have, and this is the zoom lens that I have on it. And this is it's an Olympus 4/3 camera, they call it. It's super light and it packs down to nothing. And the lens I have for it is about this big. It weighs less than a pound, and it takes surprisingly good pictures. But for hiking, I know I have the bigger cameras too. I'm not like Mark, I don't have those big cameras, but just finding some of these, they take really good pictures, much better than your camera does, I mean your phone. And the thing I like about this is that it uploads to my phone through Bluetooth right away. So I can share pictures if I want. And it also doesn't use up all my phone memory with how many pictures that you can take in movies, so I just put them on here. But this is the one I just bought for Peru, just because it's so lightweight.
To recharge your camera, have you experimented with those very small packs that you put in back of your backpack?
Oh, the solar
And the
panels.
yeah.
Yeah.
You use those?
I have in the past, but for this one, I just had 3 batteries that I took with me because it was light enough and it came in a package. So I've had mixed results with some of those solar panel backpacks.
But I assume where it's very cold, those batteries, you keep them inside close to your body, otherwise
Yeah.
you discharge.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. It was really wonderful. And
So do the two of you do anything when you're not actually hiking, Michael, do you do anything to get in shape or stay in shape? Do you work out?
I'll
How
be
long
honest
can
with
you go? Like Nicole, how long can you go without hiking before then if you do go out and hike and it's been weeks, do you feel a difference? I mean, do you try to stay in shape?
I try to stay in shape. I try to run a couple times a week, depending on how the weather and my schedule work out. But usually the way I get in shape for hiking is by hiking. So I'll do like little hikes to get ready for the big hikes. And when we were preparing for Peru, we did go up to the White Mountains every weekend and hiked a long hike. In fact, we would hike not even just up to one peak. There was one time that we hiked up to a hut, back down, and then back up to another hut just to have enough elevation gain to make sure that I didn't have to ride a horse when I got when I got on the trail. And we actually, everybody in that group was younger than us, and I could tell
15 years or more.
our guide, when he was talking about how he was going to see how we all did, he was looking at us. But then when we got on the trail, Mike was in the lead, and I want to say I was 4th. So I kept up pretty well with all those young whippersnappers.
what
Yeah,
kind of bug spray do you use?
Bug spray? Off a lot. I think the little squirty.
Yeah, I try not to use as much bug spray a lot. If I know I'm going to a buggy area, I'll have treated my clothes with something called permethrin, which is an insect repellent that just soaks into your clothes, and it lasts for about 30 days. And then just bug nets and covering up a lot. We both also have sun sleeves for hiking because, once again, I try not to put on a ton of sunscreen if I don't have to, and just not exposing myself in that way. But bugs are out there, and I have used, when it's in some areas, yes, I use 100% DEET. I have the jungle stuff, but that depends on where I'm going in the season, the type of it is. But yeah, we've used everything from the just backcountry stuff to just this, what is it, Skin So Soft?
Avon Skin So Soft for Crane Beach
yeah.
greenhead flies.
And I try, and we don't overuse it, which
Mhm.
is what a lot of people do. Like if you're using DEET, you just want a tiny little spot. You don't soak your body in it, because it is, you know, especially when I'm with kids and hiking with them, I explain to them that this is a neurotoxin.
Yeah.
It can soak into you. You just want a tiny little bit on you.
Well, thanks.
Anybody else? Well, thank you all, and
Thank
we
you.
had a good time planning it. Brought back a
Thank
lot
you
of
very
energy.
much.
Thank
And
you.
go hiking some more so we can.
Michelle and Nicole, I encourage you to come out to the Sierras and hike. There's some beautiful hikes out here.
Oh, it's on our list.
And you don't have to worry about rain gear most of the time.
Yeah, right. We'll bring our skis.
Yeah, bring your skis too. Thank you so much. Thanks for sending me the link, Miriam.
Bye-bye.
And thank you all for
Thanks a
coming.
lot.
Bye-bye.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Have a great day.
Bye.